Vicious and unpredictable hunters that stalk in the night, the two-headed giant, as it is called, prowls the countryside for fresh meat. Covered in nasty maggot-filled leather, yellow and rotten teeth, putrid nails that spew terrible odors. The last thing you do before being clobbered to death is smell its very foul presence as it becomes the next meal of the fabled Ettin. Ettins are two-headed giants with each head having its own personality and quirks. They are over 12 feet tall and weigh over 5,200 pounds. Not known to be particularly intelligent, though, they are quite cunning whilst hunting and prowling in the wilds. First, let's head on over to the monster manual and see what we're told about this creature. It says here that the Ettin never bathes if it can help it. They're usually encrusted in a thick layer of dirt and grime. Their stringy hair hangs in an unkempt mess, and its breath reeks. The twin heads of an Ettin are two individuals trapped in the same body, each head having its own mind, personality, and name. Each head never gets to experience privacy or solitude. It says here that this familiarity breeds contempt, and an Ettin bullies and argues with itself constantly. Its two heads each taking constant offense at the other's slights. Since each head has its own name, other creatures will combine the two names into one to reference the whole Ettin. In here it says that most Ettins are solitary creatures, tolerating one another only to reproduce. The heads are always the same gender. It says here that females are the dominant gender among the Ettins, and they initiate the mating rituals by hunting and conquering the males, keeping them as some form of slave during the pregnancy. The male Ettins feed and guard the female during the process, and once the child is born, the male Ettin is released from servitude, and when the child is old enough to hunt for itself, it is let free. Over here it says that when Ettins use their heads together for a single purpose, they are a real threat. For example, it says here that when the Ettin sleeps, one head always stays awake. And lastly, down here it says that in ancient dialects of Common, the word Ettin translates to ugly giant. Legends tell of orcs that once stumbled upon a temple of Demogorgon, the magic of which transformed them into giant mockeries of the twin-headed prince of demons. Whatever the truth of the Ettin's origins, orcs treat them as distant cousins. Very interesting. It's false, but pretty interesting. Now here in its stat block, we can see that because of its two heads, it is harder to force a sleep, to be charmed, deafened, frightened, stunned, or knocked unconscious. But now with that out of the way, let's talk about what the monster manual does not tell you about Ettins. Now, first things first, and let's get this just completely out of the way, Ettins do not come from orcs who were transformed by Demogorgon. The monster manual mentions this being a legend because that's all that it is. And you can see it later here when it drops the line, whatever the truth of the Ettin's origins, ... orcs treat them as distant cousins. So they're kind of letting you know a little bit that it might not be the truth, and it really isn't. Well, let me tell you the actual truth about the Ettin's origins. Now, you might not know, but Ettins are actually true giants, and I don't mean giants like how trolls are giants or how ogres and furbolgs are giants. I mean like true giants like the fire giants and frost giants. See, what defines what a true giant actually is where they came from, that being who their original parents were. All giants come from a lesser goddess called Othia, who died about 25,000 years ago. She is the mother of all giants. What defines the status and power of a giant is dependent on the father. Anam, the All-Father, the god of all true giants, who you might know if you DM'd or played through Storm King's Thunder, is the father of the true giants. Anam, the All-Father, and Othia married and had children. Those children were the Storm Giants, the Cloud Giants, the Fire, the Frost, the Stone, the Hill Giants, the Ettins, and the Titans. In fact, the word Ettin might have been adopted by ancient Common to mean ugly giant, as the monster manual tells you, but its original meaning was actually different. See, the Ettins were the runt of the litter, quite obviously when you compare them to the other true giants. And do you know how to pronounce the word runt in ancient Jotun? Well, Ettin. Ettin literally translates to runt in one of the oldest languages of the world. Because they were the runt of the litter, they never got any love from their brothers or parents, and Anton never gave them a dominion like the other true giants. You know how the storm giants have the sea and the cloud giants have the sky? Well, the Ettins never really got anything like that. They were completely segregated from the family and from the Grand Kingdom of Astoria 30,000 years ago, so most true giants might not even know that they're actually brothers. Since I figured that you might be interested, pseudo giants like the Firbolg and the Veerbog, the Fomorians and the Wood Giants are actually the result of the union between Illutiu, a minor ocean god of the sea, and Othia, whereas the ogres come from the union between Othia and Vaprak, another lesser god. Othia was still married all that time with Anton, by the way, so she just really liked cheating, and that's a whole nother story. In any case, since Ettins are technically true giants, they're actually higher in the ordning than all of the other pseudo giants, but lower than the hill giants. Now, much like all true giants, they don't actually venerate their father, Anton the All-Father. That's because he disowned all of his children. He doesn't listen to prayers anymore. Instead, they pray to his divine children. Ettins, in particular, pray to Grolantor, which is the same god that the hill giants pray to. Even though hill giants see Grolantor as a really fat, huge version of themselves, Ettins, on the other hand, see Grolantor as a two-headed giant and intelligent Ettin, none of which are actually correct. Grolantor would actually look closer to an Empyrean than anything else, but they wouldn't really know that. Now, let's actually ground ourselves a little bit and talk about more practical stuff. Ettins only ever come out at night. They never come out during the day. This is because Ettins despise continuous light, the light of the sun. It doesn't actually hurt them or impair them at all in combat, but from the very bottom of their being, they just hate the light. They can see in the darkness and are very cunning while hunting, so they take advantage of that and only come out at night to do whatever it is that they need to do. Ettins only eat raw meat, and what's interesting is that they crush their meat with their clubs before eating. They will refuse to eat their meat unless it is a pulpy mess. Sometimes they will grab their meat and just slam it against the floor or slam it against a wall until it is just a gory mess, and then they will eat it. Everything about them is just about how crude and monstrous they are, from the fact that they wear rotting maggot-infested clothing to the way they eat to the way they fight. They don't care for honor or fairness or truces. They literally just smash. Now, according to the creator of the Forgotten Realms, the Ettins don't actually argue with each other. He says, and I quote, "An Ettin never argues with itself," end quote. See, that is because the head on the right side of the body will always be the dominant head. What does that mean? Well, that means that the right side of the body will, generally speaking, be stronger than the left side. It is very explicitly described to us that the right arm of the Ettin will generally be more muscular and more well-defined, as well as the right leg. It is also described to us that the right head has an easier time taking control of the body than the left side does. This means that over time, the left head becomes somewhat submissive to the right head. Now, in the Monster Manual, the stat block shows us that the Ettin has an easier time deflecting a plethora of conditions and defects. The reality of it is that it is not quite that an Ettin resists these effects, but merely that those effects need to affect each head separately. It is described that if you plan to paralyze an Ettin using a spell like Hold Monster, you must cast the spell twice in order to affect both heads, or two people must cast the spell at the same time, targeting a different head for it to work. This is because if one head falls paralyzed, the other head can simply and very quickly take control of the body. The interesting thing though is what happens to the arms. See, for the most part, the body can be controlled by either head, including the legs, but the arms are only controlled by the respective head. So the right head controls the right arm and the left head controls the left arm. If you end up paralyzing or killing one head, its respective arm will simply fall limp. Now, the other head can control the opposite arm, but it is one of those things where this might literally be the first time it's ever done so. It is described that when something like this happens, the head will generally only be able to do wild swinging motions with the opposite arms. So it can attack, but it's fairly random and without much aiming. It is said that it takes 1 to 2 months for an Ettin head to completely learn how to use both hands simultaneously if the other hand were to perish. Now, as that seems to suggest, yes, an Ettin can actually live with only one head without a problem. However, other Ettins will lose respect for the single-headed Ettin and will consider him deformed. Ettins are solitary for the most part, so they don't really care about what other Ettins think of them, but it certainly will not help them in getting a mate for reproduction. Now, and this is important, Ettins do not regrow their heads when they are killed. Chimeras do, but Ettins don't. Now, because of how filthy Ettins live, they actually only live for 75 years on average. Now, that might actually sound like a lot, but you have to keep in mind that the blood of Anam the All-Father flows in their veins. All true giants can get to live for centuries because of this. Even the weak-heeled giant gets to live for at least 200 years. Now, as this blood gets diluted, slowly but surely, Ettins will actually get to live less and less as their generations go, as has actually been the case for all true giants. The firstborn Ettin was actually immortal, and the ones that came after that could live for thousands of years. Not that the many generations have come and gone, we're actually down to only 75 years for this race of giants. I would like to personally thank my Patreon supporters, Rukato Fan, The Nemesis Risen, Dr. Cowbell, Major Fail Gaming, Wyatt Curlin, Barry Maskant, 5E Magic Shop, Anthony Callias, Ryan Ward, Jock Jaguth, Lord of Dreams, Daniel Umar, Morgan Johnson, Zach Bowell, Max D, Simon Holman, Rusty Rain, and Mediocre at Best for supporting me on Patreon at the $25 level. If you would like to support me as well, then please head on over to patreon.com/MrRhexx to support.